Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 91. Audio source: wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Temple of 1,000 lights endlessly illuminating the lingering night. Xie Lian really didn't think anyone would actually pass the wine cup to him. Unfortunately for him, he reacted too fast and took the cup without thinking, but the moment he did, he froze. However, when he looked to who it was that passed him the cup, the other party was also dumbfounded. It was Mingyi. Turns out, earlier when the wine cup made it into Shi Qingshan's hand, Shi Qingshan thought it'd be funny and purposely passed it on to Mingyi. However, Mingyi was busy stuffing his face and drinking his wine, and didn't even bother to look up before he passed on the wine cup randomly. Only after the cup was passed did he realize what happened, and also became speechless. At the same time, the thunder stopped rumbling, leaving only the two staring at each other blankly. Although the one who received the wine cup was Xie Lian, everyone's eyes moved to Feng Xin and Mu Qing instead. It wasn't hard to understand why. Xie Lian had not been heard of for 800 years. If this was 800 years ago, there'd naturally be plenty of plays depicting his heroism, but they were long lost to time. Besides, no one would pick such a day to set up a stage, especially just to put up a play for him. Thus, if they had to find something with the character Prince of Xianle in it, then it'd have to be plays with Feng Xin or Mu Qing starring as the protagonist. This was because in the plays written for the two heavenly officials in the mortal realm, there were times they'd bring out Xie Lian, usually as a foil, a minor character, or for the sake of making the play even more exciting. Some would write Xie Lian as a villain, arranging for plots like how the lonely, abandoned Mu Qing would be bullied, or how Xie Lian would rob Feng Xin of his beloved, etc. If such plays were really performed at the Mid-Autumn Banquet, it wouldn't matter if the characters in question would be pleased, the rest of the audience would definitely enjoy it. Xie Lian held that small jaded cup in his hand, and some heavenly officials were already urging him. "Your Highness, come down the cup." A few joined in on the urging, and Feng Xin spoke up from far away. "His Highness can't drink." The crowd was growing restless. "Just one cup. It won't do anything." Jun Wu had been sitting with his hand supporting his temple without a word, but now he too slowly straightened, as if to speak. Besides Xie Lian, Shi Qingshan was also asking, "Can you do it or not? If not, then whatever, I'll help you throw the 100,000 merits to drop the curtains." Xie Lian was afraid she really would just throw out 100,000 merits impulsively. No matter how generous she was, that wasn't the way to do it. Besides, he'd seen pretty much every play there was anyway, and there wasn't anything worth paying attention to, so he hastily replied, No, a cup shouldn't be a problem." Then, he emptied the cup. Fine brew entered his throat. The area the liquid slid past was first cool then hot. Xie Lian was feeling a little dizzy, but the taste of that refined drink pushed that dizziness down in an instant. The curtains all around the small pavilion slowly lifted, and the crowd moved their gaze, ready to focus on the play. They were amazed by what they saw. Two figures stood on stage. One was in white, face covered in foundation, looking windswept and dusty, a bamboo hat on his back. No doubt he must be Xie Lian. The other was a figure in red robes, hair black like raven, handsome and brilliant, eyes bright and lively, and the snake wrapped on his arm was stripped away by Xie Lian. Instantly, that red-robed man snatched that snake back, ditched it aside, then held Xie Lian's hand without any intent of letting go. Watching that scene play out, it was like a knife violently stabbed his heart. That scene astonished all the heavenly officials waiting to watch a good show, and of course, Xie Lian himself too was astonished. Just then, Jun Wu, who was seated at the head of the feast, chuckled. "What play is this? Seems it's never been seen before." Ling Wen immediately sent for someone to investigate, then replied, "It seems this play is called Adventures in the Banyu Kingdom. It's newly written, so it's never been shown before. Tonight is the first time it's performed in the mortal realm." Shi Jingshan turned to Xie Lian. It's probably written by those merchants after they returned from the Banyu Kingdom that last time. The merits are saved, there won't be any to pull the curtains. Xie Lian didn't comment. For mortals to know about the affairs of the Banyu Kingdom, it could only come from those merchants. He recalled that there was a boy named Tian Sheng in that caravan who did indeed say something along the lines of worshipping him as thanks, so perhaps this play was commissioned by him? However, he didn't tell Tian Sheng his name, and a young boy shouldn't have the ability to do something like this. On the other side of the stage, although the heavenly officials didn't see the play they expected, but the performance before them was even more exciting. After all, if the rumors were true, then the role that red-robed man played was none other than Hua Cheng. There were plenty of plays about the crimson rain sought flower in the mortal realm. However, it's usually something like, the crimson demon burnt the temples of 33 gods and not even the heavens could do shit. The crimson rain sought flower hung the martial and literature gods and slapped them around with but one hand, etc. The kind of plays that would make those in the heavens cry silent tears, not wanting to find out just how those plays turned out. In any case, the protagonist this time was Xie Lian, and for everyone, it never felt like he blended in to be counted as one of us, so just watching the play did no harm. Besides, the stage of the play was intricate, the production exquisite, the actors extremely well made up, truly a great work of benevolence. Thus, there were many who mentally enjoyed the show, commenting as they watched. Is that true? It must be made up. Hua Cheng would never talk like that to anyone. Nonsense. Pure nonsense. Who do they take Hua Cheng for in this play? Wake up. This isn't a romantic play. Goodness, how daring. This was a play written especially for him after all, so Xie Lian watched it attentively. If you must say so earnestly, it wasn't a bad play. The actors looked good, the story was good, just as one of the ones portrayed. He had a very small criticism: the two protagonists seemed to be overly close. The one who played him was a really good actor, but every time he opened his mouth to call San Lang, although the tone wasn't up and down and full of yearning, Xie Lian thought it was even more unsettling than when Lady Windmaster called Lord Watermaster hubby earlier. Also, there seemed to be too many little gestures. Hooking arms, hugging shoulders, carrying him. Somehow, there's something that's not right. However, if he really thought about it, when he called San Lang, that was indeed the way he'd call him. Those intimate gestures really did seem to have been done too. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it at the time, but watching it now, technically there wasn't anything wrong still. Looking at the other heavenly officials, although they condemned it as nonsense on their lips, they seemed to be fully enjoying the show, watching with their eyes unmoving, their interest enthusiastic, so Xie Lian kept his mouth shut. As they watched, Shi Wudu suddenly spoke up. Who are those two little squires in the back? Hearing the word squire, both Feng Xin and Mu Qing inconspicuously froze. They're not squires, Ling Wen replied. They should be two junior martial officials from the middle court. They were appointed by the palaces of Nanyang and Zanjian to help His Highness out at the time. That the palaces of Nanyang and Zanjian would actually send people to assist Xie Lian was truly extraordinary news. As impossible as Pei Ming courteously rejecting the advances of a rare beauty, and all the heavenly officials turned to look. Ling Wen added, they went willingly. Xie Lian smiled. I forgot to ask, how are Nanfeng and Fu Yao? How come I didn't see them come out and play today? Nanfeng is, Feng Xin said. Mu Qing said flatly. Fu Yao is in detention. Feng Xin immediately said. Nanfeng is also in detention. Xie Lian, Eding commented. Both of them are locked up? What a shame. While they conversed, the curtains dropped on that exhilarating play. Although it was determined by everyone that it was written by an ignorant believer with obscene intentions. Watching an obscene watching was still fully entertaining, and the crowd applauded and cheered. However, Pei Su was exiled because of what happened at the Banyu Pass, so after the entertainment was over, everyone still had to mind Pei Ming. "How's your little General Pei doing, General Pei?" Shi Wudu inquired. Pei Ming poured himself a glass and drank, shaking his head. "How well can he do? His heart isn't in the right place. I don't care anymore." Shi Qingshan couldn't listen anymore and jeered. "So, in General Pei's eyes, where's the right place for his heart? Your little General Pei's future is a future, but the little lady's future is nothing?" Her tone was rude and Shi Wudu's eyes swept over. "Qingshan, mind your manners." The moment he reprimanded, Shi Qingshan lowered her head demurely. Seeing this, Pei Ming laughed. "Shui Shishang, your little brother is quite impressive, and only you can keep him in line. Him messing with me isn't really anything, but if in the future he messed with the wrong people, they won't let it go so easily for your sake." Shi Wudu opened his fan and continued to lecture his little brother. "Did you hear what General Pei said? Also, how many times do I have to tell you not to walk around outside in that form all the time? What a disgrace. I don't care what appearance you like, you must use your true form when you're out." Although Shi Qingshan loved her lady form passionately and wouldn't stand for his reprimand, still she didn't dare oppose her brother. Xie Lian thought, "The Wind Master says she's not afraid of her older brother, but that doesn't seem to be entirely true." Yet unexpectedly, Shi Wudu ended the lecture with, "What if you bump into someone strong in both spiritual power and ill intent like General Pei?" Ling Wen laughed unkindly, and Pei Ming almost spat out his wine again. "Shui Shishang, if you keep that up we can't be pals anymore." After the round of feast was past, in the midst of all the socializing and networking came the final act of the night, the Battle of the Lanterns. Within the heavenly court, all the candlelights and lamps were extinguished except for the moonlight, and all was dim. The banquet sat near the lake, and when the clouds and mists on the surface was waved away, through the clear moving waters the deep, dark mortal realm could be seen. Battle of the Lanterns was a competition to see which heavenly official had the most number of blessings lanterns offered from their largest, most renowned temple. One blessings lantern of everlasting light was hard to buy with 1,000 gold, and would not easily be extinguished. The order to the Battle of the Lanterns was formed from the lowest count to the highest. And when it was an official's turn, the lanterns offered by their worshippers would float to the heavens, brightening the long, dark night, beautiful and glorious. The Great Martial Palace had 961 this year, a count close to 1,000, and also a number never reached before in history. All the heavenly officials felt that next year the count would surely break 1,000, but that wasn't the point. If first place would always be first place, then first place would lose its meaning, so when it came to Battle of the Lanterns, the Great Martial Palace was automatically removed from the competition. What was dumbfounding was the moment the Battle of the Lanterns began, the first one up was the Rain Master. When Xie Lian saw that one little blessings lantern leisurely and errantly float up in the sky and heard the palace of the Rain Master, one lantern, he'd almost suspect maybe he did get drunk and hadn't sobered up. There was no way there was only one lantern. To make sure he wasn't drunk, he asked Shi Qingshan, "Is that right?" "It is," Shi Qingshan replied. "It really is just the one. And that one was lit by the bull from the Rain Master's own house for the sake of showing face at the feast." Self-offering. What a familiar sentiment. Xie Lian pondered. The Rain Master controlled rain and was thus the god of agriculture. He guessed. Is it because the worshippers of the Rain Master are mostly farmers so they don't have the funds for offerings? Your Highness, do you have some kind of misunderstanding of farmers? Shi Qingshan said. A lot of farmers are wealthy, okay? This was only because the Lord Rain Master had said it was better to farm than to use the money for offerings, so the followers had always offered fresh fruits and vegetables instead. Hearing this, Xie Lian was extremely envious. What a marvelous thing, he thought. However, Shi Qingshan added, And then later the Lord Rainmaster also said not to waste anything, so usually after a couple days the worshippers would take home the offerings and eat them themselves. At the beginning of the battle, the numbers were all scattered and sparse, the lights belonging to the lower-ranking officials, count never reaching over 10, and no one paid it any mind. However, as the battle continued, as the light of the lanterns grew brighter, the more everyone paid more attention. If it wasn't for the designated heavenly official who announced the count, it'd be impossible to count the lanterns floating up so tightly knit. Xie Lian didn't know at all what was going on, so he didn't comment on anything, only focusing on appreciating the beautiful scene of lanterns brightening the black, long night while listening to everyone else's analysis of how the battle was going. Although he didn't think there was really anything to analyze. After about 2 incense time, it was finally time for the grand finale. The fight for top 10 of the Battle of the Lanterns at the Mid-Autumn Festival had begun. The bottom of the top 10, Xie Lian heard the announcer official shouting. The Qiying Palace 421 lanterns. Quan Yijun had long left the feast, so when the other officials heard the count, the clicking of their tongues were not hidden. That martial god of the West was young, but his headwind was strong. To other officials of around the same years of experience, just 200 blessings lanterns was already plenty. Yet he more than doubled that count. Even Lang Qianchu, who ascended earlier, didn't have as many lanterns, so he was definitely someone impressive. However, Xie Lian felt that young man really wasn't that well received in the heavens, because other than himself and Shi Qingshan, there was practically no one else who was sincerely awed by that number. The next one, Palace of the Earth Master, 444 lanterns. Other than sipping 2 more mouthfuls of soup, Ming Yi didn't express anything else, yet Shi Qingshan was even more excited than he was repeatedly claiming. Too low, too low. Because everyone wasn't very close with the Lord Earth Master, they clapped politely to congratulate. Soon after, it was Shi Qingshan himself. The Palace of the Wind Master, 523 lanterns. How popular someone was something easily seen. Once the lantern count for the Palace of the Wind Master was announced, Shi Qingshan hadn't even said anything, and the applause from the banquet roared, hollers and cheers of congratulations. And, as expected, everywhere, Shi Qingshan was quite proud, standing up to wave at the crowd and gleefully shouted at Shi Wudu. "Shay, I'm 8 this year." She was acting like a child begging her parents for rewards after having been praised by her teacher, and Xie Lian couldn't help but smile. Shi Wudu, however, berated. "Only the 8th, what's there to be happy about?" His words were truly wildly arrogant. In the entire heavenly court there was no one who was a nobody. Yet, 500 blessings lanterns, ranking high as the 8th, became nothing more than only 8th from his lips. So then the ones who ranked lower than 8th, wouldn't they be worth less than that? It wasn't like he didn't know what he said was arrogant either, but he had to say it anyway, because he wasn't afraid. Shi Qingshan's face dropped. Shi Wudu fanned his fan and added with difficulty, "But there are more lanterns than last year. Next year must be better." Hearing this, Shi Qingshan smiled and laughed again. At the banquet, it was only Ming Yi who was stuffing his face without a care and not cheering for her, so Shi Qingshan smacked him twice, asking for some congratulations. Ming Yi ignored her completely and continued to devour the food. Shi Qingshan was outraged, demanding for him to applaud her, and next to them Xie Lian was going to suffocate from laughing. The next up, Lingwen Palace, 536 lanterns. Amongst all the literature gods, Lingwen was considered number 1. However, not too many literature gods congratulated him, and instead it was the martial gods who sent their regards. Xie Lian congratulated him from afar. And on this end, Shi Wudu and Pei Ming demanding he hold a celebratory feast, while on the other end, grumbles from other heavenly officials could be heard. Complained that Ling Wen only had so many worshippers because she used a male form. that Ling Wen kissed the asses of martial gods, seeing how they were more popular at the moment and had no time for other literature gods. That Ling Wen held the most feasts, that there'd be escorts at those feasts, etc. etc. Xie Lian shook his head and had only one thought in mind. It wasn't easy being a woman official. Following Ling Wen were the palaces of Nanyang and Zhanjiang, each counted at 572 and 573. Mu Qing looked pleased while Feng Shan didn't appear happy nor angry, seemingly uncaring. Xie Lian was mystified. How did the count come so close? That's too much of a coincidence, he asked Shi Qingshan in a low voice. Turns out, because the two of them had a similar background, similar might, and territories right next to each other, plus their unfriendly relationship with one another, the worshippers on both sides both fought each other to win, vowing that however many lanterns the other offered, they must offer just one more. They didn't ask to be number one, only just better than the other. They'd use their everything, and every year there'd be victory and defeat. This year, at the very last second, Zhanjiang Palace finally squeezed out one more lantern, winning over Nanyang Palace. The worshippers looked like they won a battle and was crazily celebrating. Hearing this, Xie Lian couldn't help but think, rather than fighting each other to death outside, shouldn't those people go home to celebrate the holiday? It's the Mid-Autumn Festival. The next one, Mingguang Palace, 580 lanterns. This number was quite impressive. Yet, Pei Ming didn't look pleased because compared to the year before, the number of blessings lanterns the Mingguang Palace received was actually less. It was a shock to have something happen to the Deputy General Pei Su, and this year they lost close to 100 lanterns. If it wasn't for Pei Ming's strong foundation, he just might have lost more. Neither Shi Wudu nor Ling Wen congratulated him, and only patted his shoulders. Up until now, Xie Lian discovered, the count for the blessings lanterns of those heavenly officials were all very close together. Only 10s and 20s apart, no one really standing out, which means everyone's pretty much the same, no one was really winning. He was just thinking this when that announcer official shouted, "The Palace of the Water Master, 718 lanterns." The banquet was in an uproar and the sound of amazement was everywhere. Once the heavenly officials all came to, they fought each other to send forth their congratulations. Shi Wudu only sat there and didn't rise, not looking like he was particularly proud, only that all this was only natural. This was probably the second heavenly official who came that close to the count of the Great Martial Palace in the past several centuries. The first time Xie Lian ascended was too far in the past, and the blessings lanterns back then were even harder to come by, so it couldn't be compared. However, they say, man dies for wealth, birds die for food. The people's passionate love for money will never decrease, as expected of the god of wealth. Shi Qingshan was even more excited than as if she was to receive 700 lanterns, and applauded with force, shouting to Xie Lian, "It's my brother! It's my brother!" Xie Lian laughed. "I know, it's your brother." At the banquet, it was still only Ming Yi who was working hard at eating, all by his lonesome. Truthfully, Xie Lian thought out of everyone present only. He took the feast literally and seriously, attending specifically for the food part, as if having played the part of a spy at the ghost city starved him and he was working to refill his stomach to the brim tonight. When Xie Lian thought back to the street food sold at the ghost city stalls, he could understand wholeheartedly, and couldn't help but wonder, did Hua Cheng stroll through the ghost city streets every now and then? The most thrilling mystery had now been revealed. And tonight, each of the heavenly officials had watched place to their heart's content, socialized, and satisfied, they rose to their feet ready to take their leave. Unexpectedly, Shi Wudu suddenly frowned, snapped his fan shut, and spoke. Wait, if anyone else were to say, wait, they probably wouldn't be as effective. However, someone like Shi Wudu was known as the water tyrant for a reason. as if he was born to give command. The moment he opened his mouth, others couldn't help but to obey, so everyone sat back down into their seats, wondering. The top 10 are out. Does the Lord Water Master have anything else to add? Was he going to give out merits too? Xie Lian wondered. The top 10 are out. Shi Wudu fanned his fan. No one knew what he had meant, only Shi Qingshuan, who suddenly cried. No. No, no, no. The top 10 aren't all out. Even if we count the Great Martial Palace, only 9 have been announced so far. Everyone was stunned and soon they started muttering. Only 9? Really? I counted. There really was only 9. Someone else is ranked higher than Lord Water Master. What? Who can it be? I don't know anyone like that. Just then, a bright light white as day exploded into the blackened night. That light was lanterns. Like thousands upon millions of fish swimming through gorges to the sea, countless lanterns slowly floated up. They shimmered and gleamed in the dark night, radiant and brilliant, like floating souls of a magnificent dream, exceedingly beautiful, brightening the black and mortal realm. In the face of such a striking sight, none could speak and all held their breaths, their words broken. Xie Lian watched that sky full of lanterns in dumbfounded awe. It was like his breathing stopped and nothing could be heard, and he remained dazed for a good while. It was only after some time before he realized something wrong. The eyes of every heavenly official at the banquet were on him. Turns out, that announcer official had raised his trembling hand and pointed at him. Taken aback, Xie Lian asked, "What is it?" No one answered, and Xie Lian pointed to himself. "Me?" Next to him, Shi Qingshan patted his shoulder once. "Yes, you." Xie Lian was still in shock. "Me what? What about me?" That announcer official swallowed a couple times with difficulty and finally spoke again. Thus the hundreds of heavenly officials present heard a voice trembling with disbelief. Qiandang 3 Temple, the Palace of the Crown Prince. 3,000 lanterns. Translator's notes. Shui Shishang is Pei Ming calling SWD. Water Brother. The Mid-Autumn Festival, like Lunar New Year, was a time for family reunions. Xie Lian was amazed that MQNFX's followers would rather fight over offering lanterns than go home and be with family. Qiandang translates to 1,000 lights. End chapter.